What is up, Dodgers Nation? I am Clint. That guy is Brooke, and this is a cool day for us. We have a senior. I'm just gonna leave it right there. Now, right. Senior ESPN MLB insider. Of course, you've heard him countless times on your Sunday night baseball broadcasts on ESPN. He's part of that broadcast team, and you can hear him every weekday on the fantastic Baseball Tonight podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this podcast, new friend of the show, Robert Stanberry, only the third. That's Buster, if you're nasty. Buster, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it.
So, this is, we were talking about a little bit before, weird times for the world, we'll say, but definitely a weird baseball season, no doubt. You got universal DH. You got runners starting at second base in extra innings, which people are both liking and disliking. It's all over the place, so on. Who, in your opinion, has benefited the most from this short season?
Wow. Yeah, and it's so funny you say that because, as you mentioned, some people like to run at second base and some people don't. It feels like the political lines are drawn right along between pitchers and position players because you get pitchers like Clayton Kershaw saying they don't like it, it's short term. And folks in front offices and position players actually, I think, like it a lot. You know what? I'm going to say the San Diego Padres. Among all the various entities that you could pick, the fact that they have a shortened season in this year in which the ownership there was ratcheting up pressure. We need to step up. The fact that they got out of the gate well, I think it means that at the end of this year, one way or the other, and it's pretty certain at this point they'll make the playoffs, that it's been a year of improvement for them. So I'd say the Padres.
Yeah, that's one of the teams that we don't want you to say, Buster, so we appreciate that over here. A reminder that this is a Dodgers podcast, Buster, so
we appreciate the fair takes.
We do. We want to talk about those Dodgers a little bit because, coming into the season, obviously the team to beat, pretty much all the way through the season, the team to beat, but they're stumbling here in the final stretches of the season. They're banged up a little bit in the first place. You got Buehler and maybe Dustin May down for a little bit. You got a little bit of a battered starting rotation. You got Cody Bellinger not looking like his MVP caliber self. What's your overall assessment of this team right now, looking at the last 3 weeks of the season?
That it is amazing that, we were talking about them just a week ago on being these unbelievable record-type trajectories that will never be fulfilled because it's a 60-game season instead of 162. But I did SportsCenter last week, and we were talking about them being on a pace for 123 wins and 420 run differential, and they still have the best run differential in baseball, at a plus 98. And yet, and you guys watch it play out every day, they're not really hitting in all cylinders. Like you watch the games, and you're like, as you said, Cody Bellinger's not doing great. Max Muncy is not really taken off. They do have guys in their lineup where you could see them getting hot, but they will go into the postseason as the prohibitive favorite. There's no question about that because of the level of talent, because of the addition of Mookie Betts, and I think. I bet you if you're in the minds of other National League teams and you're hoping to be that team that knocks off the Dodgers, it's probably going to come down to, one of the first two rounds where your better chance to beat the Dodgers is going to be in a best of 3 or best of 5. Because in those extended series, you really feel like that their collection of talent will manifest.
Yeah, that was the big thing with the Dodgers going into the season, especially the shortened season. It's like, okay, the Dodgers are so good because they can out-depth anybody in a 162, but 60, everything starts to get a little bit closer. If one team that might usually have a health issue, looking at the Padres like you'd mentioned earlier, now all of a sudden they don't have to worry as much. It's only 60 games. I mean, of course, people can get hurt, but now everything kind of tightens up a little bit there. But we saw that in 2018, the NLCS. They were able to outlast the Milwaukee Brewers. We don't know who was the better team. We know who got the pennant for it. But right now, like Brooke mentioned, we're at probably our weakest point, even if the numbers still say the Dodgers are the best team right now. Focusing in on Walker Buehler, obviously he's kind of a guy who's really supposed to be that anchor in the rotation in October. He's dealing with that blister for the first time. He's thrown more than 90 pitches, I think, in one start this year. How much does this hurt the Dodgers in October, particularly Buehler?
There's no question it's a concern because I think as we projected the Dodgers, especially going into a postseason, you thought, okay, you're going to have Walker Buehler effectively the number one guy, Clayton probably at number two, and then you see who else will fill it around. Well, even if Walker comes back at this point and is able to deal with the blister issue, he probably isn't going to be 100%. He's never going to be in 2020 in all likelihood that guy who's can dominate into the seventh inning. There's just not enough time. You're running out of days in the calendar for him to do that. And you guys have seen pitchers with blister issues. They can, in some cases, they can go away, and sometimes they can really linger, which is why it wasn't a surprise the Dodgers, given the fact they've got the lead in the National League West, they got a little bit of time to deal with it. But if you're one of the other teams in the National League and you're hoping to see some cracks in the Dodgers, this potentially is one of those cracks, the fact that Walker Buehler probably is not going to be as good as he can typically be.
Yeah, I'm getting those Rich Hill blister flashbacks, and that's not good when you're a Dodger fan.
Right,
that brings up
exactly.
bad memories. Buster, I'm going to ask you a very quick, simple question that'll qualify you as a hitting coach across Major League Baseball after you answer this. What is wrong with Cody Bellinger? What do you see in his swing?
So it's funny you asked today. I talked to some evaluators, and they think he needs to back off the plate, that he continually is getting beat with fastballs. And it's amazing if you go to Fangraphs and you look at the damage he did against fastballs last year versus what he's doing this year. They have a value chart, and last year the number was plus 30. This year the number is minus 3. And so I asked that question that you asked, and I'm not smart enough to be a hitting coach, believe me. I'm just the idiot that parrots what I'm told. And what I got back a lot of was he needs to do something different than try to loom over the plate and take away the inside corner the way that we see Anthony Rizzo, the Cubs do. Maybe a better solution for him is going to be what Jason Hayward did this year, which is actually to back away from the plate a little bit more, because the guy is a phenomenal athlete. He's obviously a lot better hitter than he's showing so far.
Yeah, before we jump into October baseball, which is kind of what we want to talk about next, I want to get your thoughts on Mookie Betts playing second base last night, because I would argue that Mookie Betts is a better second baseman than Jock Peterson is a first baseman, but I would also argue that I felt like Dave Roberts got a little bit too cute with it last night. I didn't think that was a really necessary move. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. Yeah,
it's interesting, because I was getting a bunch of texts from people that other teams basically saying, what are they doing? Like, what are they doing here? You got arguably, Buck Showalter once said to me that Mookie Betts is the best right fielder he's ever seen ever. And they've got that guy out in right field, and it's not as if the Dodgers lack for options at second base.
Right.
You guys have run through them, Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor, if you want to, in a pinch, Austin Barnes, Max Muncy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They have a lot of guys.
Chipper. Yeah,
you got everybody.
Throw in.
Well, and so what I was getting back from other teams was, no, don't overthink it. Now, I was trying to envision, scenarios in which they would potentially play Mookie at second, and maybe in an extra inning game or some crazy thing, and you're moving guys around and you're doing different pinch hitting things. But I just don't think, like, if there was a team that was out there that was just stacked with lefties, and you'd look at their rotation and say, okay, you better line up a bunch of right-handed hitters, maybe then, but there really isn't that team. So I was scratching my head, and I don't know anything, and the people who do know things last night were scratching their heads as well.
Yeah, apparently Mookie's the one who kind of reached out, and Dave Roberts sort of took the flack on that. But yeah, optically, just once again to see the Dodgers sort of playing with house money in this short season, it left kind of a bad taste in the mouth, I think, of a lot of people. But and it proved to be a losing lineup, so that's what we can throw in their face. You guys did it.
Lost.
We lost one game to the worst team in baseball. More October is right around the corner. We're less than 3 weeks away, I believe, from that postseason. In your opinion, who is the biggest threat to Los Angeles early in October?
The Padres. Look, the standings say that, the numbers say that. The Dodgers are number one in run differential as we speak. The Padres are two. The Padres upgrades, turning over basically a third of their roster at the deadline to hone, to get a Mike Clevenger who can beat a good lineup on a given day. That draws them closer. And on top of that, it's almost certain that if the Dodgers and Padres play, it is going to be in the best-of-5 division series. And that potentially is something. If you're as we talked about before, if you're the Padres, you like the fact that you're catching the Dodgers in a series that's not extended. And let's face it, they certainly have the talent to, if a Tatis Jr., a Machado, one of those guys gets hot and you pull out a game, maybe you beat Clayton Kershaw and win a matchup maybe you didn't think you're going to, then in a 5-game series, anything can happen.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it too, just how dangerous the Padres are in a 3-game series, let alone in a 5-game series. You got Lamet out there, now you got Clevenger out there. You throw Davies in, and Paddock isn't having his best season, and now he's hurt, obviously. But in a 3-game series, I wanted to get your thoughts on that 3-game series and how that changes up baseball playoffs for the rest of this year. Because now, you're looking at a lineup like the Nationals, who are unfortunately a little bit out of it, but they got those deadly top three guys, and you're looking at it and you're like, wow, that's a big change for baseball playoffs this year.
It's huge, and it's better, I think, from the player's perspective than a 1-game wild card. But if you guys remember back in 2013, 2014, there you could make an argument that the Pittsburgh Pirates were the best team in the National League as the regular season ended. But because of the seeding, they wound up facing Jake Arrieta in 2015 after facing Madison Bumgarner the year before. And they got Madison Bumgarner right before the greatest postseason performance we've ever seen. And they got Jake Arrieta at the end of the greatest second half we've ever seen, one and done, and they were out. And, best of 3, it's a better situation than that, but there is still that complete serendipitous nature. If you steal one of the first 2 games as an 8 seed, you're there. It's baseball. Yeah. It's not, it's not NCAA football. It's not the NFL. It's not the NBA with LeBron being the dominant guy on one team. It's baseball, and all you'd have to do is win 1 game.
Crazy things happen in baseball. We saw it somewhat last year with the Nationals, but I mean, their record after that horrible start kind of proved that, hey, they are a scary team, and anybody that can line up a couple good arms, that's really all you need to upset a beast like the Dodgers here. But one last kind of base or postseason thing. Just to further throw you on the spot, because it's fun for me. Do you have any bold predictions? Bold predictions for how things might shake out in October?
Well, and I don't know if it qualifies as a bold prediction because I'd be betting on the guy who right now is probably the best pitcher in baseball. I think the Cleveland Indians are a really dangerous team in October. In fact, I had a general manager say that to me a couple weeks ago, like, do you want to face that monster? And he was referring to Shane Bieber, in a best of 3 or best of 5. They don't score many runs. It's offensively challenged. Their outfield production is terrible. But Shane Bieber stuff this year is so ridiculous. They have an excellent bullpen. And again, if you get one guy who gets hot behind Shane Bieber, you can pretty much beat anybody. Mm-hmm. So if that, I don't know if that qualifies to you as kind of a bold prediction, but that's the one team that I don't think would be at the center of everybody's radar that I look at and I say, that's an interesting group.
Yeah, I'll give you bold adjacent on that.
Yeah, that counts.
Because not enough people know about the Indians, so people are gonna be like, wow, what's wrong with this guy? Buster's lost it.
I think it is interesting that you can trade away a guy like Clevenger and still be that dangerous team in October, though. So that qualifies as bold. We'll count that in. Buster, there you go. You're working the Astros and Dodgers series. ESPN's obviously covering it. It's a big series. I mean, not even just because it's the Astros and Dodgers, but coming off obviously the Joe Kelly thing, and we have the new Joe Kelly mural out here in LA. So we're ready to rock. We're ready to welcome them into town. What stands out to you this series with the guys who are potentially slated to headline? Apparently you got Greinke coming up.
Yeah, Greinke's going on Sunday when you guys are covering. Well, what stands out in that series for you?
Well, first off, I think the Astros have been better than we thought after they started so badly. I had scouts of the team saying basically that team looks like it's just ready to pack it in. Mm-hmm. That you had a lot of veteran guys who maybe didn't like the scrutiny, but Dusty Baker's done a nice job of them. It looks like they're going to wind up making the playoffs, in part because the American League West is terrible and they're going to finish second. But I think, that's why Dusty was brought in there. Some of the big guys, the guys who are part of the 17 team have not played as well. George Springer, Bregman, Altuve's on the injured list, but, he was not hitting very well. Carlos Correa is actually playing okay. But I mean, let's face it. I think as long as, you have that core group from 2017 on the Astros. For the Dodgers, it's going to be like waving a cape in front of a bull. That there'll be a little extra juice for them, and I think that's going to be the way for the rest of the people like the Yankees and the Red Sox and other teams who may feel like, you know what, the Astros took something from us.
Yeah. Sidebar there, mentioning the Yankees. What the hell happened? What happened in New York?
Yeah, what a mess. I changed my pick just before the start of the season after watching the Yankees in during the summer camp period, and they looked phenomenal. And then they started to get guys hurt. Now, last year they had a lot of guys hurt, and a lot of the B-teamers, Michael Talkman, stepped up, and they played well, and that just hasn't been the case. On top of that, behind Garrett Cole, they've really struggled to find consistent starting pitching. Tanaka has not thrown well. Jordan Montgomery looked great in summer camp, and they've been really surprised by him. But all you need to do is hear the concern in the words of Aaron Boone, and know that Brian Cashman, their general manager, went in and probably in a nice way chewed him out the other day, basically saying you're better than this because they're playing way below expectations. Who would have imagined that they'd be playing the Orioles in a big series in the middle of September, for the last playoff spot in the American League?
Yeah, that's one of the things I've loved about the 60-game season is the fact that, really, every weird thing that we thought might happen is kind of happening. You got the Yankees at 22-21 in third place in the AL East behind, obviously, Tampa Bay we knew was good, but behind Toronto, and Toronto not even playing in their home ballpark. You got the Angels and, going 18-27 in the West, in the AL West, and the AL West, it just looks terrible. There's so many interesting things about this year that I think we'll get to look back on and be like, what a wild year of baseball.
I've always, on social media, you'll see fans chime in, they need an asterisk to put it. No one needs an asterisk. No. Everyone knows it's 2020 and stuff is happening. When you go back and look and say, now, why was it again that the Cardinals didn't play or work out for 16 days? Oh, that's right. A third of their players tested positive for coronavirus and half their coaching staff. It's just, that's what this year is. Yeah. And I'd say this, I don't, generally speaking, it hasn't been a good product. I think we didn't really know until this year how important fans in the stands were for the players. My God, there's so many of these guys who were just dying for the adrenaline, the borrowed adrenaline from fans. Yeah. But you give them credit for plowing through it.
Yeah, shout out Kenley Jansen right there. Doubling back to this Houston Dodgers series here, the last time the two met, obviously fireworks went off. Things went off. Joe Kelly sparked hundreds of memes, dozens of shirts. Great things happening. A mural here in Los Angeles. Do you expect any sort of fireworks similarly this weekend?
If I had to bet the family farm back in Vermont, I'd say no. But as we saw in the Joe Kelly situation, all it takes is the right personality on the mound in a moment. So if for either one of these teams, they get a lead and somebody looks cross-eyed at another guy, if you get the right personality on the mound, and Joe is certainly the right personality for something like that. I know he's not going to play in this weekend series, but that type of guy. Suddenly, it gets hot and it gets competitive, and something could happen. My instinct is no. I do think that next year there probably be more of that than there's been this year.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to being able to get in the stands and boo the players properly when they get here this year. We got the mural, we got the face. We have somebody flying a banner over the stadium during batting practice. It's going to be great, but it's not going to be the same. Buster, we appreciate your time, man. It means a lot for us, to you taking time out of your busy life, busy schedule, and coming here with the Z-List podcast. So, folks, be sure to check out the Baseball Tonight podcast. That's a good one, I hear. It is. You guys, you're running throughout the season. You get good guests, good analysts, and all the great storytelling that you're able to get from your career covering the game. So,
well, I appreciate it. I really enjoy talking with you guys. Anytime.
Thanks a lot. Buster Olney, thanks once again.